The penalty of tariffs on cars coming into the United States from Mexico at 25% will be massive.
Several Republican lawmakers have warned against closing the border, but also say new tariffs could put a renegotiated trade deal in jeopardy. The Democratic-controlled House, meantime, has authorized a lawsuit to block President Trump from diverting billions of federal dollars to border wall construction.
Fox's Jared Halpern in Washington also headed south. California's Governor Gavin Newsom. He's traveling to El Salvador, saying he wants to learn firsthand what prompts thousands of Salvadorans to leave their homes and travel to the U.S. More trade talks Thursday in Washington with China's trade negotiators. No deal announced, but the president says he thinks they're close.
I think it'll be great for the United States. I think it's going to be hopefully really good for China, too. It's going to be good for everybody.
It was thought the president might announce the date for a summit meeting with China's President Xi, but he did not. It's 1 week out from Great Britain's European Union crash-out deadline. The EU's Council President, Donald Tusk, is reportedly prepared to offer a 12-month flexible exit plan. This according to the BBC. New disappointment for the family of a boy who's been missing from suburban Chicago for the last 8 years. A young man who told Northern Kentucky police on Wednesday that he was the missing Timothy Pitson made it up. DNA tests show the imposter is really a 23-year-old Northern Ohio man. Kara Jacobs is the missing boy's aunt. She says they are heartbroken again, but not angry.
We hope that everyone will join us in praying for the young man who claimed to be Timothy Pitson.
Police still trying to determine the imposter's motive. This is Fox News.
Are you a veteran or on active duty looking for a home loan and VA eligible? Then Bank Pacific stores are open to you, where we are a VA approved preferred lender. That simply means we can give you faster credit approvals and loan closing. And with today's super low rates, you just can't go wrong. Bank Pacific's My VA Loan, where we're open to closing your loan in a hurry.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply. Viva Bank Pacific.
Shrimp and guacamole for Lent at Subway. The all-new shrimp and guacamole combines generous portions of whole shrimp and a spread of guacamole served on freshly baked bread, paired with vegetables cut fresh daily in restaurants and sauces that are sure to excite your taste buds. Hurry in, it's only available for a limited time. Other fresh Lenten flavors include the classic tuna or the mouth-watering greatness of our seafood sensation. Don't forget the Veggie Max, a delicious and tasty vegetarian patty. Visit any of our convenient locations today. At Subway, you make it what you want.
City of Chicago will file a civil suit against actor Jussie Smollett after he refused to pay a $130,000 bill to reimburse the city for the investigation into the attack that he says happened on a Chicago street in January. Now a group of Chicago law enforcement officers says it's time for Cook County's state attorney to go.
We have taken a vote both in the Police Chiefs Associations and with the FOP of a vote of no confidence in Kimberly Fox.
That's Fraternal Order of Police President Kevin Graham.
This is not just about a Jussie Smollett case, which undermined the public confidence and law enforcement faith in Cook County criminal justice system.
Last week, the state's attorney's office announced it was dropping all 16 felony counts against Smollett. 5 Colorado police officers have been cleared in a deadly shooting.
Nicholas Ryan was shot and killed by officers during a car chase in Douglas County. Prosecutors say that was after Ryan ran a red light and fled cops. Gunfire was exchanged between police and passengers in Ryan's car. Police say when they disabled the car and the suspects didn't comply with orders to get out, they continued firing. 2 other suspects were taken into custody. Chris DeMeo, Fox News.
2 suburban Atlanta police officers are recovering after being shot while investigating a 911 call on Thursday. The alleged gunman has now been barricaded in a home in Henry County for more than 15 hours. He reportedly holds 2 hostages. Motel 6 has agreed to pay $12 million to settle a lawsuit filed by Washington State claiming the names of hotel guests were provided to immigration officials for up to 2 years. The state's Attorney General Bob Ferguson also saying the company signed an agreement to stop that practice and to provide training to employees to protect guests' privacies. Presumably, they'll continue to leave the light on for you. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Help celebrate Earth Month with 93.3 The Point and the return of the Upcycle Mascot Showdown. Stay tuned for details on the upcoming live event and how you can support your favorite school. The Upcycle Mascot Showdown, brought to you by Lolita Kamet from Remax Diamond Realty, the Agana Shopping Center, Sylvan Learning Center, PBS Guam, and 93.3 The Point.
Ruby Tuesday's Seafood Sensations menu is back. Choose from your favorite dishes made with succulent lobster tail, shrimp, or our newest sensations with crab legs. Try out appetizers like crab fondue or stuffed shrimp. Pick an entree like the lobster tail or crab leg dinner. Select the lobster carbonara or the deep sea pasta. It's all ready and waiting for you. Get hooked on Seafood Sensations for a limited time only at Ruby Tuesday Guam.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. It applies everywhere in the United States, believe it or not, even in California. Yeah, I know that's a stretch, but the case in San Diego, the Southern District of California, came out just the other day and rekindled my faith that the Constitution has nationwide reach, even in such hostile climates as California. I don't have a special on the Second Amendment today, so instead of spending a little more time with the Second Amendment, what do you think we should do next, Real Joe Cruz?
I think this calls for Zemi Kutney, sir.
Zemi Kutney, all right. Good call, Real Joe Cruz.
Thank you.
Well, let's just roll the dice here with the Daily News editorial. Here's the title: Our View, Establish Clear Standards, Regulations for Gambling. The senators who voted to pass Bill 29, which allows island mayors to create rules for gambling at the carnival, made a mistake. Oh, wow. The senators made a mistake. It boggles the mind. Yeah. As did Governor Lou Leon Guerrero when she signed it into law. Mayors will consult with the Office of Attorney General and the Department of Revenue and Taxation to create rules for games of chance at the annual Liberation Carnival. Senators must then approve the rules before gambling once again becomes legal at the event. Angel Sablon, executive director, Angel Sablon, he of the $98,000 per annum salary, executive director of the Mayor's Council, said the draft rules would be ready by Friday. Boy, our government is really moving, accused of moving too slow. We're really speeding up the pace lately. Back to the editorial. That sure doesn't sound like enough time to create a comprehensive set of rules to properly regulate gambling on Guam. It seems like just enough time to slap together some loose, generic guidelines to allow the return of gambling to the carnival without accepting any real responsibility. Sapuan noted that Rev Tax is proposing the use of chips and tickets instead of cash to better track revenue and improve accountability. While that would be an improvement over how things have been done, it falls far short of what's needed. If senators want to allow various forms of gambling on Guam, they need to ensure they create a comprehensive set of standards, rules, and regulations, and see to it that the government can properly enforce those standards, rules, and regulations. That's a pretty big order. We've never done anything like that before. Why should we start now? It's not as if they'd have to work from scratch. There are many U.S. jurisdictions that allow gambling. all of which have established clear standards, rules, and regulations, all of which can and do enforce those standards, rules, and regulations. These jurisdictions don't just allow gambling at certain places at certain times. They establish standards of fairness for everything, size and weight of the dice, not to mention how many spots are on each of the die. How many spots on each die, Real Joe Cruz?
Too many for me to remember, sir.
Try 6.
6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you know that the word die is the singular of dice?
I did. It's like the word mice and mouse.
So it would be 2 mice and 1 my, right?
1 my.
Yeah, 2 dice and 1 die.
Not miceses or diceses.
So if this is a mouse, if I had 2 of them, they'd be computer mice, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. It's good that you know these important rules, Real Joe Cruz. How about Joe Cruz's? If I had more than 1 Joe Cruz, what would it be?
Joe Cruz's is...
Joe Cruz's is... I think it'd probably be a disaster, but that's another story. All right. Now, again, I got to translate the use of the word they because it's taken on so many meanings lately. They, meaning casinos and other jurisdictions, establish standards of fairness for everything, size and weight of dice, payout percentages for machines, rules for each type of allowable gambling activity, accounting for revenue and taxation, and so much more. Those who try to cheat the system, whether it's a gambler or a gambling establishment, are caught and held accountable. Now, if you believe some of the stories that circulate around about Vegas in the old days, accountability for a gambler who cheated oftentimes was a broken kneecap. I don't know that we want to go quite that far. For our elected officials to allow for anything less when it comes to gambling is unacceptable. So I guess the editorial staff at the Daily News is not about to go down to the carnival and place a bet. I can't say that I blame them. So that's the Daily News. Taking a peek now at the Post. It's been 2 days now since the Post got the coveted Blue Star. I imagine there's some angst and anxiousness over at the Post editorial boardroom. And here it is. A pattern of priorities emerges. This is kind of what Daryl was writing about the other day in the Daily News. A pattern of priorities emerges. The wait is over. Governor Lulian Guerrero on Thursday signed Bill 32-35 into Public Law 35-5, which makes recreational marijuana legal, although it would take about a year before people may legally start using cannabis. Well, not so. People could legally start using cannabis at midnight last night. But before the commercial aspects of the Public Law 35-5 are fully in place, probably going to take about a year. At the press conference announcing her decision, the governor said, as a community, we can work together to make sure that we provide continued safety to our people. I wonder what you would do to provide continuing danger to our people if legalizing marijuana is a way to provide continued safety. And yet, the agency in charge of enforcing local laws and ensuring our community is safe didn't comment on the bill and remained mum when asked about recreational marijuana. So you have to kind of wonder, scratch your head a little bit. The chief of police didn't comment on this bill. Did the chief of police, let's see how many possible answers there are. The chief of police didn't comment on Bill 32 because, one, he wanted it to pass, and he thought if he kept his mouth shut, chances of passage would be improved. Two, he didn't know enough about the bill to comment. Three, he didn't care whether it passed or not. Four, someone at the front office whispered in his ear, you could sit this one out. You really don't need to get involved in this one, Chief. What do you think it was, Real Joe Cruz?
I'm not sure, sir.
You're not, well, not being sure is not the same as not knowing. What, if you're not sure, what's your best guess?
Whatever your best guess is, sir, is my best guess.
Ever the diplomat, the Real Joe Cruz. Okay. All right. Attorney General Levin Camacho shared concerns about the potential for increased risk of crimes. Federal law forbids banks and credit unions from accepting marijuana-related financial transactions, so marijuana will remain cash-based deals. Prompting the AG to raise concerns, cannabis shops would become prime targets for theft and other crimes. Already we're seeing a number of crimes, like the incident in Barragata Heights in which police ended up chasing a suspect vehicle down a busy thoroughfare after an alleged home invasion, and a theft of a stash of marijuana that also left a homeowner beaten. In another recent incident, 2 people were arrested when police stopped a car that had a weed odor, and young children were not safely restrained in their seats. In the same traffic stop, methamphetamine also was allegedly found. The Guam Visitors Bureau, an attorney representing local employers and even local residents, asked if lawmakers could take a step back. They called for thorough study and time to consider the concerns related to the things such as workplace safety. Now, here's something that occurs to me with respect to the workplace. As a general principle, employers don't want drugs in the workplace. They don't even want you to bring a pocket flask of brandy to work with you and take a sip from now and then. So I think we could assume that employers don't want employees smoking marijuana on the job. Some employers, because of the contractual nature of their work, have to go to certain steps to provide a drug-free workplace, which includes random drug tests. So what's going to happen the first time an employee is given a random drug test and it comes back positive for marijuana or cannabis, either one? And the employer said, well, I'm sorry, I have a drug-free workplace here. The only way I can keep it that way is pick up your check on the way out. And the employee said, but I haven't smoked marijuana for 3 weeks. Why are you firing me? Well, because you didn't pass your drug test. Now, I know from my reading that when a marijuana drug test is conducted, a urine test, to detect the use of marijuana, what it detects is what are called metabolites in the urine. That is the product of metabolizing cannabis. Not the cannabis itself, but the product of the metabolism. So if the metabolites stay in the bloodstream for 30 days, what do you do with the employee who swears up and down, I haven't had it. I was on vacation, and I smoked a little marijuana on my vacation. But after I came back to work, I never smoked. I haven't had anything to smoke for 3 weeks. You can't fire me. What's going to happen then? And along the same lines, giving this whole thing a little thought, looking back at the days when I used to imbibe of alcohol, and that goes all the way back to last century, actually last millennium. I knew how much I could drink and before I reached the danger point, how many 12-ounce beers I could drink before I reached the point where I should say, no, there are some things I shouldn't do. I shouldn't drive. There are a couple of other things I shouldn't do. And I had the ability to make informed decisions. Also, if I were, even in a foreign country, if I were to imbibe, say, beer, and I knew that the beer had 9% alcohol compared to, the alcohol and average alcohol content of American beer, I could only drink half as much for the same result as if I had been drinking American beer. And then you have some places like Kansas that sell what's called 3-2 beer, even less alcohol. Well, a little experience and a drinker knows how to handle that stuff and not get himself into trouble. I don't know if that would be the case with marijuana. From what I've read, marijuana comes in various strengths. And also, yesterday we talked a little bit about edible marijuana and the dangers of edible marijuana, because it takes a little longer for edible marijuana to kick in, and people would be tempted to take more than what they need in order to get the effect they're looking for. We talked about the guy that jumped off a 4th-floor balcony yesterday after eating a couple of cookies. These are just random thoughts that have been popping into my head since the governor signed this bill on, what was it, Thursday, Real Joe Cruz? Yeah. Just an awful lot of really hard questions here, I think, to deal with. And I can't get over the fact that the legislature at the end changed its method of operation to get this bill out of the way in order to potentially moot out the town meeting at Tamuning. And I keep coming back to the same theme, that had the legislature taken a more deliberate approach of what it was doing, there might have been broader acceptance of the result that they reached. On the other hand, there are some people who say, well, I don't care how they did it. At least they passed it. That's all I care about. I think that guy probably over there, the one I call the smart money, that's probably what he was saying. Well, what difference does it make? They passed it. The governor signed it. It's the law. Who cares? What, are you sitting over there with him?
I'm like, yeah.
Holding hands with the smart money?
The smart money's got all the money, sir.
Okay. All right. So the lack of perspective from our law enforcement agency, lawmakers ignoring calls for study before passing the legislation to ensure we know what we're getting into as a community, and not allowing a thorough discussion about the community's safety makes us wonder. The speed with which this bill was introduced on January 31 and signed into law just a little more than 2 months later, even as our community faces more pressing issues, such as the growing number of illegal dumps, our public hospital crisis, our major problem with meth, and the increasing number of panhandlers on our intersections, is astonishing. To paraphrase one resident who called for senators and the governor to pause and consider the ramifications of legalizing recreational marijuana on Guam, what was the rush? What was the rush? Most of the senators and the administration's priorities are now taking shape. Just have a look at Guam's 5 newest laws. 35-1, increased property taxes for $1 million properties. Now, this was signed into law by a governor who said, I don't have to raise taxes. All I got to do is collect the taxes that we already have on the books. First public law she signs, a new tax law. She's got a good excuse, though. 35-2 ensures government of Guam health insurance members get coverage at Guam Regional Medical City. And the Post roasted the legislature and the governor on this one, too. It appeared to be abject favoritism for GRMC, much to the detriment of GMH. Number 3, 35-3, addresses hiring preference points for certain GovGuam applicants. Now, if you're a veteran, you could say another anti-veteran move, because what that 35-3 does, it removes veterans' preference points from the government of Guam promotional process. So if you're not a veteran, you'd say, yeah, that's good. You're a veteran, you might not like it so much. 35-4 allows the establishment of gambling rules at the Liberation Carnival and ultimately gambling. It's an incredibly bad idea, even if proper rules and regulations were drafted. Public Law 35-5, legalizing recreational marijuana. Finishing line, now we know. And remember, the first sentence of this editorial was, the wait is over. We wondered what the priorities of the new governor and the new legislature would be. Real Joe Cruz, can you tell me anything special about the new legislature?
There's 10 females, sir.
10 females?
Yes, sir.
This has happened before, though, hasn't it?
I'm not sure. I mean, you'd be able to tell me that.
Never happened before.
It's unprecedented.
Yeah. And what can you tell me about our governor?
Yeah, it's the first female governor, sir.
First female.
You didn't know that?
Well,
got to remind you every now and then.
Yeah, I'm sometimes like an absent-minded professor, but
it's all right.
But that one I kind of remember because it kind of pounded into my head for 3 weeks after the election.
Okay.
So I have to agree here with the Post. This legislature and this governor are getting off to a terrible start. One thing the Post didn't mention, because it's still with the legislature, is the weakening of our law on statutory rape, lowering the bar for conviction on statutory rape. So some feel-good stuff in here. Marijuana makes you feel good. A lot of people think gambling is fun. It's a good recreation, etc. However, some of us, I suppose those who would be branded as maybe old-fashioned or stick in the muds, etc., would much rather see our legislature attack serious problems that we have on the island instead of getting involved in regulating conduct. So, so much for Zemi Cotney. Let me see, I got an interesting Facebook post I'm going to look at here. One thing that nobody is speaking about is pot versus Second Amendment. ATF paperwork discusses this. Will marijuana users who buy guns misreport use and thus commit perjury for the opportunity to get high? Firearms laws and drug laws are not a laughing matter. Yeah, I remember that. In fact, I think I had an article on it at one time where folks with medicinal marijuana cards actually should not be given, in states that license such things, should not be given firearms licenses and should not be able to buy guns. I'll check into that. That's a really good point. And then underneath that, this is Joe. Let me see which Joe this is. Not you, is it, Real Joe Cruz? Well, just let me pick up some other stuff here. Maybe I'll stumble across it. Nate Horn. Good afternoon, Nate. One of our very regular customers here. No matter what the conversation, Nate usually tries to horn in. Okay, let's take a short break here. That'll give me a chance to cruise through the Facebook posts.
Let's go for a drive.
Let's take a stroll. Let's gallivant.
Let's go cruising.
We all have different ways to describe how we get up and go in our cars. But whatever you may call it, you can do more of it when you save 6% off your fuel purchases at any Shell station when you use your eligible Bank of Guam Visa and MasterCard credit cards. So stop by any Guam or CNMI Shell station and start saving today. Visit bankofguam.com for more information. Terms and conditions apply. Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Member FDIC.
Guam Regional Medical City. We bring the healthcare advances of the world directly to you. We are an acute care hospital that complements your needs with our robust outpatient specialty clinics. From preventative care to critical care, we strive for consistent excellence at GRMC. Our core philosophy is where patients are partners, which means we work as a team to make a healthier version of you. For more information about GRMC, visit us at grmc.gu.
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spittin' truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
Yeah, it was Brad Hewitt who said one thing that nobody is speaking about is Pond versus Second Amendment. ATF paperwork discusses this. Will marijuana users who buy guns misreport use and thus commit perjury for the opportunity, let's see here, for the opportunity to, well, this is hard. Well, I'll let this go until after our big halftime show, and then I'll come back to it. I can't, it was Brad Hewitt's comment, and I can't find the oh, wait, here it is. Gun owners especially are more careful than those who pass judgment before ignoring us personally. We hold ourselves to a higher standard. After all, we are vetted more than others just to maintain our Second Amendment rights. Okay, well, I'm going to come back to this after our big halftime break, as is my usual custom. And I've got Mike on line one. Good afternoon, Mike.
Hi, hey, thanks for taking my call. I was wondering if I could throw in my 2 cents about the whole cannabis issue.
Give me, throw in your 2 cents, and I'll probably give you a penny back in change, Mike.
All right, let's try it. So, I mean, I think we can all agree this is a very divisive issue, and it's a big deal, has a big effect on the island. So I'm not going to make a case for either way. I'm not going to push it aside because I'm kind of caught in the middle. I'm a little torn. But one thing I do feel very strongly about that gets me is, why wasn't this left up to us, the people, to decide in a general election? And maybe just I can support that by saying, well, first of all, you know, it's such a big deal. Second of all, when we voted for this new legislature, I don't remember this being a platform. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't remember saying, hey, we're going to take on marijuana this next 4 years. A vote for me means this. A vote for me means that. Like, I wasn't aware that this was going to be determined by them. I would like to hear their stance and voted accordingly. And all of a sudden it comes up, and now it's an 8-7 vote. I mean, you couldn't be more split, just like the community. And to add to that, I mean, you know, there was a comment just before it passed. The guy who put the bill out there, what was his name?
Clint?
Clint?
Clint, yeah.
He said in the post, there was a quote of him saying, "We believe the silent majority support this." Well, if you do, what's the right thing to do? Back it up. Let the people decide. And then Bisco Lee said in the same article, where like when they were in a hurry to just pass the thing and get out of here, get it out of there. She said, the people have been heard. I wasn't, I'm sure they heard your view, but I didn't get to put my view out there along with the other 159,000 people on the island. So, that's my thing. That's what I feel strongly about. So I know I'd like to, just get your comment on that.
I think you're absolutely right, Mike. And I'm not in favor of this, and I've explained why. Starting out with taking marijuana off Schedule 1, dealing with it as a medicine, if in fact it has medicinal property. In a republic, matters such as criminalization of drugs should be matters of state, not federal law. But when it comes down to our own particular situation here, I don't see that society gains anything by adding one more mind-altering drug to the situation. And while I've been saying that, I've said all along that the way the matter was handled was not conducive to winding up with a situation where people perhaps didn't favor the legalization of marijuana, but at least said to themselves, well, I can live with it because. And an awful lot of people are saying, no, I like you, I can't live with it because of the way it was done.
I agree.
And I'm not usually a fan of referenda because although it's waning, I have more faith in a deliberative body like a legislature to put together complicated statutory schemes that reconcile competing interests. But this is not a complicated scheme we're talking about. This is a matter that would regulate the conduct of people on the island, and because it permits certain kinds of conduct that have been prohibited before, has a broad societal effect. And for that reason, I would have much rather seen it go to a referendum also. Second thing in favor of referenda is that there is a much more in-depth process of developing information on the question, because both the proponents and the opponents will be out there trying to convince people to vote their way. So I agree with you 100%, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's too late, but that's really what gets me. I mean, to be honest with you, in my younger days, I would have been definitely for it. Now I'm not totally against it, but it's a little. I don't know. I'm older. I have kids. It's like, well, do we really want this mainstream? And I could accept the decision if we all got together and decided together, not like I said, an 8-7 split vote that we had no idea wasn't even an issue. So that was going to be tackled. And anyway, so thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. Bye.
And, of course, adding a few years to the calendar oftentimes changes a person's viewpoint. There's an old saying that when you're 20 years old, if you're not a liberal, you have no heart. When you're 40 years old, if you're not a conservative, you have no brain. And I think perhaps some of that plays into the question we're dealing with here. I think some of it is divided along traditional liberal conservative lines. If we had accurate polling here, I would suspect that a lot of issues would get the same kind of poll numbers. The people opposed to abortion would probably be opposed to the legalization of marijuana and so on down the line. But I'm just sitting here guessing and conjecturing. That's a good call from Mike. And if the matter had been handled a little differently, the results would have been the same. But we all do live on the same rather large boat here, the same island. And one of the things that I would hope politicians take into consideration is what I mentioned the other day about politicians in ancient Greece. The word politician was an honorable calling, because in the Athenian democracy with competing interests and controversy, politicians were people who would deal with the different viewpoints and try to come up with something that was generally acceptable to everyone. And I would hope that our politicians would do that. I know there are results-oriented people out there who say, I don't like the smart money. I don't care what the hell happened. The legislature passed it. I don't care if it was 8-7 or 15-0. They passed it, and the governor signed it, so shut up. It's the law. And, of course, it's okay to say that, and I suspect people do, but it doesn't tend to bring a whole lot of harmony to the community if it's important to think about such things as harmony in the community. Okay, so that's it for Semi-Ekotny. I thought we had a couple of pretty good editorials today. It's a close one. I think both editorials dealt with important issues. They were edgy. They had punch. They didn't pull their punches. The Daily News editorial had a call to action, and the Post editorial kind of reached a conclusion. And the conclusion was that the legislature is really not concentrating on the things that the Post would like to see them concentrate on. So although it's close, I am going to give the Post the coveted Blue Star Award today. If I were a good liberal, I'd say, well, I have to give it to the Post today because I gave it to the Daily News yesterday. And I wouldn't want people at the Post to lose their self-esteem. So everybody should get a gold star, right? Okay, so we move from there to the card. And the first item on the card is the Vatican versus Aperon. And of course, by now, it's no secret that the Vatican has ruled against Bishop Anthony Aperon in his appeal of the trial in the first interest, and found against him and determined that he can never return to Guam, not even for a short visit, that he can never wear the accoutrement of a bishop. So I've got some interesting articles that I've plucked from the internet here, starting out with the Wall Street Journal and La Stampa. I don't need to give you much of an explanation of what the Wall Street Journal's all about. Unfortunately, I can't give the whole article because I ran into the Wall Street Journal paywall not long after I started reading. So the Wall Street Journal, Vatican allows Guam Archbishop to keep rank despite child abuse verdict. He gets to keep his rank. An archbishop in Guam who was found guilty of sexual abuse of minors by a Vatican court and permanently removed from his post remains a priest with the rank of archbishop, underscoring wide inconsistencies in the Catholic Church approach to abuse around the world. The sentence in the latest abuse case involving senior Catholic hierarchy contrasts with a recent expulsion from the clergy of the former Archbishop of Washington and shows that the zero-tolerance approach for sex abuse adopted by U.S. bishops is far from universal. So that's the Wall Street Journal. Then I have an article from La Stampa. And La Stampa is published in Rome, and it tends to be very neocat friendly. But here's what La Stampa says. Picking up at the second paragraph. In short, Aperon, who had already suspended himself from his post in 2016 by asking the Holy See to appoint an apostolic administrator so he could concentrate on defending himself against accusations, is removed from the office of bishop and can no longer use episcopal symbols such as mitres, pastoral rings, pectoral crosses, and so on. So he can't dress like a bishop. He can't wear a bishop's ring.
He can't wear that big hat anymore?
He
Really
can't.
tall
That's
hat?
his mitre. No, he can't wear his mitre. Yeah. However, quote, sacramentally and juridically, he remains bishop, close quote, as explained by the ad interim Vatican spokesman Alessandro Gisatti. So, former Archbishop Apparon is no longer Archbishop of Agagna. Former Archbishop Apparon is now Bishop Apparon, without a diocese to be in charge of. First question that pops into my mind, does that mean that since he's incarnated here, that the Archdiocese of Agagna has to keep paying him? I'd really like to have an answer to that question if folks up at the Chancery are listening. And then the article goes on to say, there are two accusations Vatican insider learns. Vatican insiders always really light on sources. They will quote sources and tell you what they learned, but they never attribute it to anyone. There are two accusations Vatican insider learns that have determined the canonical condemnation of Monsignor Apparon, they call him. Initially, there were 6 against the prelate, not only concerning cases of abuse, and rejected by the Apostolic Tribunal presided over by Cardinal Raymond Burke. Now, it's interesting. It would be interesting to find out how Vatican insider learned that. The judicial criminal trial of the bishop ended in the first instance on 16 March 2018. The sentence of that time found Apparon guilty of some of the charges, imposing his removal from office and prohibition to live on the island. The verdict was subject to possible appeal, the Holy See made known then. And in fact, the appeal was presented by Apparon's lawyers upon receipt of the communication a few days before publication, presenting new evidence. We didn't know that. Presenting new evidence that, according to the lawyers, showed some contradictions and thus exonerated the Archbishop from accusations. Now, this is a newspaper talking about stuff that no one is supposed to know about. And they explain it by saying Vatican insider learns. However, on 7 February 2019, the court of the second instance confirmed the last March sentence, declaring the accused guilty of crimes against the Second Amendment, the Sixth, not the Second Amendment, crimes against the Second Amendment. I had the Second Amendment stuck in my mouth. Crimes against the Sixth Commandment with minors, and the Sixth Amendment here means improper sexual acts. The decision represents the definitive conclusion in this case. No further appeal is possible. And then we go on to, the rest of the article is all about what Apparon said. And one of the things that Apparon said is this climate, all too evident in local newspapers, which has hindered the work of the court of the first instance, testifies to the presence of a pressure group that has planned to destroy me. This is Apparon's statement. With great pain and fear, asking me not to, several people told me with great pain and fear and asking me not to reveal their names, that they have been invited to make accusations against me even behind an offer of money, Apparan points out. He adds, sexual abuse of children is an aberrant crime that cries out for revenge before God. So I'm going to come back with some more of the international coverage here leading up to our big halftime show at 5 o'clock.
It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
It's a seafood celebration on the Lent menu, now back at King's Restaurants. Your tasty favorites like salmon curry, orange shrimp, and whole deep-fried parrotfish will have you swimming with flavors from the sea. Our fried rice with salmon or shrimp will make ordering easy and delicious. It's a seafood celebration on the Lent menu. Available all day, every day, just for Lent, and only at King's.
So I have another release here from the Catholic News Agency. Headline: CDF upholds guilty verdict of Guam Archbishop for abuse, etc. Having been found guilty of sexual abuse of minors, the penalty leveled against Apparan is unusual. Often a cleric found guilty of such crimes would be, quote, laicized. What that means in everyday language is defrocked. He would no longer be a priest or removed from the clerical state. Sources told CNA last year. Sources also noted that the Archbishop has seemingly maintained his ecclesiastical facilities, as your faculties, and though restricted from residence in Guam, is apparently able to exercise ministry as a priest. A source close to the CNA, close to the case, told CNA that the penalty is, quote, a complete contradiction to the sentence. The source said that if the Archbishop is guilty of sexual abuse against minors, justice would demand the strongest possible penalty, adding this punishment maintains the status quo. One expert suggested to CNA that the 5-judge panel, one expert, you don't have to put anybody's name in if it's a source or an expert or something you learned, suggested to CNA that the 5-judge panel may have been divided on the Archbishop's guilt, which could explain the disparity between a guilty verdict and an unusually light sanction. One source questioned whether pressure to quickly resolve the matter might have influenced the sentence. Pope Francis told journalists in August 2018 that he was personally considering the Archbishop's appeal and bypassing the traditional Giuria, the Council of Bishops that make up a tribunal, because Apparan's situation was a, quote, very difficult case. Instead, Pope Francis said he, quote, took it upon him myself and created a commission of canonists to assist him with the case. Now, apparently, the Pope did not decide it because the announcement came from the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith. The Church doesn't do itself any favors by not being more open and upfront with the way it handled these things. And then another source, one source close to the Archdiocese of Agana and Guam, questioned whether Archbishop Burns pushed the Vatican to release the sentence in order to resolve public concern about the matter in Guam. Well, I don't know if he did, but I darn sure hope so. This thing, it's kind of like some of the considerations that Mike and I were talking about with respect to passing the cannabis bill. People who have the ability to make laws, make decisions, etc., really need to take into consideration the effect that their decision and the way they make decisions has on the people that, in theory, they serve. So the Vatican hanging on to this thing for as long as it didn't do anybody any good, probably not even Apparon. Going on, however, the source, now this is a source close to the Archdiocese of Agania, so this isn't somebody in Rome, this is somebody right here on the island who questioned whether Archbishop Burns pushed the Vatican. He's not accusing, he's just questioning it. He said, I wonder if Archbishop pushed the Vatican. That's clever. However, the source questioned whether Burns has been appropriately advised on the matter. Most of the people who were opposed to Apparon in terms of governance have become advisors to Burns, the source said. The curial advice Burns is receiving is institutionally and personally opposed to Apparon. Very interesting. So, and I've got another one here from the Catholic News Agency. Picking up in the middle, equally important is the story of Archbishop Anthony Apparon, who until today had been Archbishop of Agania, Guam. Apparon was additionally found guilty of some acts of sexual abuse of minors in March of 2018. His appeal consisted of a full trial with a second instance court. Apparently not the Pope, which is what the Pope said last August, and he said, I'll have a decision by the end of December. But according to this article, a full trial with a second instance court, and it was announced today he lost that appeal. The decision was made February 7. What's today? April 5.
Yes.
I guess you can't accuse these guys of moving too fast, right? They don't have a case of Klitzkie syndrome. Let's see. Guam is an island in Micronesia, a U.S. territory. Its people, including Apparon, are U.S. citizens. This means that Apparon was the first U.S. Archbishop to be definitively convicted of canonical crimes related to child sex abuse. A final decision in the case came 6 days before the February 13 decision that laicized McCarrick. But unlike McCarrick, Apparon has not been laicized. Instead, he was removed from his post in Guam and forbidden from living there and prohibited from using the insignia of a bishop, from wearing an episcopal ring or mitre. Very interesting. Sources close to the Archbishop told CNA that Apparon was charged with more than 5 canonical delicts at first entrance and convicted of only 2. At the time of that conviction, the panel of judges prohibited his residence in Guam and stripped him of his position as Archbishop. Okay, I'm going to come back to this after that big halftime show, and then we'll take a peek at some of our Facebook posts.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Hope stashed again for the family of a missing boy. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. It's been 8 years since Timothy Pitson disappeared from suburban Chicago. This week, a young man told police in northern Kentucky he was that boy, who'd be 14 now. DNA tests back on Thursday prove that he lied.
It's like reliving that day all over again. And Timothy's father is devastated once again.
That's Kara Jacobs, who's the missing boy's aunt. Newport, Kentucky police say the imposter is really a 23-year-old man from Northeast Ohio with a criminal record and a history of scams. They don't yet know his motive. The deadline for Jussie Smollett to pay Chicago $130,000 for the cost of the police investigation of what they call his hate crime hoax has passed. Smollett did not pay up. The city now preparing a civil lawsuit against the actor, which means the facts of the alleged attack in January could still be heard by a jury. President Trump headed south later this morning.
President Trump will visit the U.S.-Mexico border at Calexico, California today, where he'll tour the 30-foot section of replacement border fence installed last year and also participate in a roundtable with local law enforcement officials. Construction crews finished replacing the 2.25 miles of bollard-style fencing in Calexico in October, the first major replacement project at the U.S.-Mexico border completed since the president took office. The president's visit to Calexico will be his 5th to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Fox's John Decker at the White House. The president easing off on threats to close the southern border, now threatening Mexico economically if they can't stem the flow of migrants.
What's more real initially is tariffs on the cars coming in, a 25% tariff on the cars being made in Mexico coming in. You know, Mexico, prior to my becoming president, took close to 30% of our car business. Okay, that's a lot.
This is Fox News.
Fox Nation is the place for
Protect Class of 79 is back. Join them on April 27th at the Onward Beach Hotel for a night of dinner, dancing, skits, and reminiscing. It's been 40 years since graduation, so take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime chance to relive the memories. There's also a memorial mass on Friday, the 26th, at the Santa Teresita Church. Be there at 5:30 for candle placement in honor of classmates who've gone before. Tickets for the reunion on the 27th are on sale for $40 a person. For details, find Connie Kittigwas and Nicholas at 488-6108 or Kathy Diaz, 777-3243. Viva 79ers!
Lent-friendly burgers at Chili's. Indulge in a selection of our famous burgers with a black bean patty. Black bean patties combine beans with onions, parsley, bell peppers, and cilantro. Served with dill pickles and fries. More Lenten entrees include the spicy shrimp tacos, Cajun pasta with shrimp, or grilled ancho salmon. Best of all, each entree is just $15 and comes with a refreshing Coca-Cola, iced tea, or Heineken on draft. Our fresh house salad with an entree for just $15. Chili's 3 for Me Lent menu. Available for a limited time. Chili's. More life happens here.
Continues in Henry County, Georgia, outside Atlanta, where police say a gunman is holding a 16-year-old boy and a woman hostage. Family members there worried.
We are fearful. We don't know what's going on. We just want somebody to communicate with us. That's the only thing that we want. We just want somebody to be able to just let us know if she's okay. 2
police officers were shot and wounded there. Responding to a domestic dispute, police have lobbed tear gas into the home. A hostage rights group is withdrawing its offer to honor Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
A State Department official says a foundation rescinded an award it had planned to give Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The official says the secretary writes in a letter, quote, "I understand that the foundation decided to rescind the Freedom Award and my invitation to attend the 2019 James W. Foley Freedom Awards due to pressure from its media partners and your fear, stated in your recent letter, that some guests at the dinner would not show my office proper respect if I attended." James Foley was a freelance journalist kidnapped in 2019, reporting in northern Syria, and murdered in 2014 near Raqqa. The foundation bearing his name works to free American hostages kidnapped abroad and protect journalists working in conflict zones.
Fox's Rich Edson at the State Department. Boeing with an update on the progress it's making towards getting its grounded 737 MAX 8 jetliners back in the sky after 2 deadly crashes that killed more than 300 people.
When the MAX returns to the skies with the software changes to the MCAS function, it will be among the safest airplanes ever to fly.
CEO Dennis Muhlenberg, preliminary investigation suggests the jets had flawed anti-stall systems that pilots weren't properly trained for. A key Senate panel is asking the FAA for documents about inspectors who looked at those now grounded jets. Asian stocks closed Friday mixed. Dow futures are up about 40 points. A day after the Dow gained 166, but NASDAQ lost 4. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The stations of Choice Broadcasting would like to congratulate Burger King on their 30th anniversary.
Give yourselves a round of applause.
Thank you for serving Guam with your great tasting food from your friends here at 93.3 The Point.
Happy anniversary, Burger King! It's important to have claims process that works for you. At Guahan Insurance Services, we make things simple and convenient. Same door you walk in to purchase your insurance is the same door you open to file your claim. We can't pretend that the car insurance claims process is fun, but we can promise a hassle-free and speedy recovery without any runarounds. For your home, auto, and business insurance, visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center on Marine Corps Drive in Tamuning. Don't forget to like us on Facebook or give us a call at 475-1162 or text 929-SAVE. That's 929-7283.
So the great halftime show here signals that we are now in the second half of Tall Tales, and I think it's time we welcome back all of our friends, Real Joe Cruz. And
welcome back.
We'll welcome them back and give air to some of their pithy comments. No lisp there. So let's see who we got. Tom Van Engen, half a day, Tall Tales crew. Backing off the cult of personality. Sorry about that, Real Joe Cruz. I hope your feelings aren't hurt.
No, not in the
Your
least.
self-esteem is okay?
I'm okay. I got a blue star like everybody else, sir.
He must have snuck in here and grabbed my blue pencil.
Yes, sir.
All right. Then we got Jose Martinez commenting on the editorials, another winner from the Post. Nate horning in, saying it's entirely up to the company until it's taken off Schedule 1. I guess he was talking about my comments about drug testing and the possibility that a person could test positive on what's commonly referred to as a piss test, although he had not reported for work under the influence of marijuana. And in fact, it had been several days since he had used marijuana. Kind of thing that HR people think about. And then we've got another, this isn't you, this is another Joe Cruz. You weren't worried about other people's jobs, and now you care if someone loses their job? Sure you do. Wow. Yeah, good call, Joe Cruz. I should have been worrying about people's jobs sooner.
That's true, sir.
Yeah, my bad. How insensitive of me of not worrying about people's jobs before this came along. Jose Martinez, another factor not considered. This mess of a drug has a very well documented unintended consequence that we may very well see here on Guam as well. see this reply in this thread from an excerpt from the article on this documentary. And then there's a link there that you could explore on your own. And it goes to a Daily Beast article called Murder Mountain, Where Marijuana Can Kill. This is some obviously propaganda put out by the anti-marijuana folks, right? I'll just leave it for your own exploration and digestion. Which reminds me, Paul Zerzan had a comment in yesterday's post dealing with a video from KOMO in Seattle called "Seattle is Dying," and I watched it last night, and of course there's some videography there. You know, there are a lot of ways to take videos of something depending on the point that you want to make. But that particular video, Seattle is Dying, a 1-hour news broadcast, pretty scary. And without going into all the details, what happened in Seattle was that the very liberal city council decided that they weren't going to prosecute minor, unimportant crimes. And in the process, they've turned Seattle into what one cop referred to as a concentration camp. And it's really horrible. I haven't been to Seattle for a few years. I always like to go through there. I always thought it was really a nice place, but not anymore. The word marijuana was mentioned only once in that Como program. Other drugs, as an example, cops in Seattle won't bust you unless you have more than 3 grams of heroin in your possession. And according to that story, 3 grams is 30 doses. So the cops that were interviewed said, I used to be proud of the work that I do, but now I can't enforce the law. And I would contrast that. I probably ought to do a little more research on this, but Rudy Giuliani cleaned up New York City. There was a time that you wouldn't want to walk down the street in Times Square with your wife because it was so tawdry and so dirty and such a mess. And Rudy Giuliani embarked on what some police scientists would call broken windows policing. And the theory is that in a neighborhood, if there's a broken window on a house and it doesn't get fixed right away, people see, well, people don't care about their stuff here, so I guess I'll break a window too. And the whole thing can get out of control pretty fast, and neighborhoods can turn to ashes really quickly. And Rudy's idea was prosecute the small crimes. And by doing that, you create a climate where the bigger crimes aren't committed. Yeah, I'm just glancing at the screen. I haven't been to Seattle lately. No worries, you aren't missing anything. And that's the conclusion that I drew. It used to be such a neat place, but no more. Okay, so picking up back with the Facebook comments. More people go missing in Northern California's Humboldt County, a stunning verdant enclave of mountains, rivers, and redwood trees, than anywhere in the state. I hate it when this happens. Well, I'm going to start somewhere else and work back. Troy Mesa says Seattle is dying and taking the whole state with them because they consider everyone else below themselves. My family lives outside the liberal enclave of Seattle. They are toiling to live a life there. I was accused by a homeless person because he says I owe him for his plight when my family works to take care of themselves. So sad. And then Tedo, hope now our honorable governor and senators focus on the real epidemic on Guam, ICE, opiate addiction. Soon another Fresno Uncle Senator Larry Kasperbauer stated, "It's time to take our island back. I'm sure we can seek funds from the Department of Interior Insular Affairs to get a lot of funds to help this problem." Jesse Limtiaco, police were not created to enforce morality. Maybe you can explain that to me, Jesse. Brad Hewitt, haven't been to Seattle lately? No worries, you're not missing anything. Troy Mesa, Senator Bob and Real Joe Cruz, please disseminate between THC and CBD and their benefits for those who may not know the difference. Well, I've talked about this before, and I did mention once one of our Facebook posters posted on the internet that marijuana had been patented by the United States government. And I found and he posted the patent number, and I looked it up, and in fact, a patent had been issued to one of the research facilities of the United States government. And what I found out was that this is a very common thing for government research agencies to do. When they start horsing around with something, they patent it, not because they're going to do anything with it, not because they're going to sell it, but in case down the road they need to do something with it, they don't have to start out a patent. So what they had patented was one of the components of marijuana, not THC, and their research showed that it did have certain positive effects on brain anomalies. And when I found that, I said, I go along with this. If cannabinol can have positive effects on people, then fine. Let's treat it like we treat every other medicine. I don't think that we need to be selling it off our back porch if it really has positive effects. So, let's see, going back up to the top here. Ken Leon Guerrero, now that the headline-grabbing bills are out of the way, maybe the administration and the 35th can get to work dealing with real problems like debt crisis, healthcare crisis, exodus crisis, trash crisis, water system crisis, homeless crisis, crumbling infrastructure crisis, and the cost of living that is driving a growing exodus of our young people. Brad Hewitt, we will see how long people do this in the privacy of their own homes. And that goes back to an earlier post that I somehow lost. Maybe I can find it over here. Okay, so Troy Mesa, as you were. Joe Cruz, another Joe Cruz. I thought there were more pressing issues facing Guam, so move on and let us hear your solutions for the real problems. You care so much about all the problems, but you still spend time trying to kill cannabis, and it's not trying to kill you. Would that be an example of a straw man fallacy? Probably. Troy Mesa, true, but I've always believed responsible gun owners have been more restrained than others. And then Jose Martinez says, stop trying to suppress speech, Comrade Joe. And I can't find Joe Cruz's statement that I had, and I lost it. That's the flaw with the system here. Well, there's Jose on the Aperon story. Jose Martinez, La Stampa has no credibility. Aperon ran away from Guam. Nate Horn, are we supposed to feel bad for the guy? Brad Hewitt, Jose Martinez, it's a pipe dream. No one would set up a business when the guy down the street is selling the same product, a cheaper rate because of no overhead. Ted Aguaje, a challenge was filed no matter who filed it. Now the AGs will have to defend the cannabis law using resources and funds of the people of Guam. Well, I found out who filed the suit. It's that great legal light, Sedfrey Linsongan. Sedfrey Linsongan has filed a lawsuit. And yes, the Attorney General will have to defend the lawsuit, and that's okay. That's the Attorney General's law. The Attorney General's job is to defend, where possible, the laws of Guam, no matter who files suit, no matter what the subject of the suit is. If the government of Guam or a government official acting in their official capacity is the defendant, then it's the Attorney General's job to defend, unless the case is so obviously what the government done is so obviously unconstitutional that it's indefensible. And of course, we'd expect the Attorney General, if he's to err, is to err in favor of defending the government. So that's just the way the system is set up, Tedo. Troy Mesa, personally, I have no issue with the use of medicinal marijuana. Recreational use is no more than a vote grab with the uninformed. Brad Hewitt, even California saw only half the revenue projected when they went recreational. Why? People don't need to make purchases in dispensaries. Another Joe Cruz, still weak. Jesse Limtiaco, Brad Hewitt, that's because California hasn't issued licenses. There is so much regulation on businesses. Colorado, on the other hand, is exceeding expectations. Oregon has too much legal cannabis. They don't even know what to do with it. Brad Hewitt, Ted Aguaje, they can start deducting projected pot revenues from taxes and fees. Taxes and fees. Jesse Limtiaco, Brad Hewitt, I know people who sell fresh corn, cherry tomatoes, donate, and cucumbers down the street, but I still go to Payless. Yeah. Ted Aguaje, in Colorado, they allow cannabis farms. Why can't bona fide farmers be given the same opportunity to grow it too? We live in a tropical island. Brad Hewitt, Jesse Limtiaco, why obtain a business license when the black market runs without any kind of enforcement or judicial punishment? Same thing will happen here. Look at the bed and breakfast issue or the underground taxi service. Another Joe Cruz. Things move fast nowadays. We can't wait around while people lollygag. What's the rush? That's kind of the kind of thinking that got us today's problems. Jesse Lemtiaco, Brad Hewitt, same reason most people get a business license. It's a, quote, legitimate business, close quote. Legitimacy obviously was top of the mind awareness for the 8 senators who took an oath to support the laws of the United States and then voted for Clint's bill. Rico Blancaflor, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Rico. Brad Hewitt, Jesse Lemtiaco, game over. Not so fast. Has it happened yet? No, rarely when it was illegal. What would the change be now that it's legal? Troy Mesa, there seems to be an argument of semantics here. Make it simple. If you can provide proof, a licensed dispensary for legal marijuana use, you are judged by a jury of peers. If not, if one cannot, you're responsible for any actions incurred as with any other judicial action. Jose Martinez, seriously, Joe, lollygag? Did you just arrive in a DeLorean? Jesse Lemtiaco, Brad, feds can't even get their crap together. They have a $22 trillion debt, and we expect them to do a better job here on Guam. Brad Hewitt, got to be a better than the local Guam government. Tedo, you and Joe are okay in my book. And our Carl, howdy, real Joe Cruz. Oh, and you too, Bob. The cult of personality continues. Troy Mesa, Senator Bob, and real Joe Cruz, please disseminate between... I already did that, I think. Jesse Lemtiaco, police were not created to enforce morality. Well, what were police created for, Jesse Lemtiaco? Ted Aguahi, hope now our horrible governor and senators, our honorable governor and senators focus on the real epidemic. And I read that already. Troy Mesa. I read that one already. Here's Joe Cruz. Here's a profound point. Joe Cruz, if they make scratching your balls illegal, how would you feel? What if they legalized scratching your balls in your own homes and taxed it? How would you feel? Do you understand now? As one who likes to use analogies to press a point, in fact, it may be my favorite technique of rhetoric. No, I don't understand another Joe Cruz.
You don't get it, Bob?
Sorry. Troy Mesa, soft language makes for a complicit populace. Brad Hewitt, thankfully I don't have crabs, so I don't have to worry about that personal problem. Troy Mesa, seems we have pretty funny discussions today, eh? Senator Bob and Real Joe. Have you been engaging in funny discussions there, Real Joe Cruz?
No, sir.
Probably when I step out during the halftime show, you grab the mic and tell jokes. Right?
No, sir.
Ismael Velez, are these balls controlled substances? Do they tax ball scratching in your own home? It's called property tax. Ishmael Velez, Bob said horrible instead of honorable. We know how Bob really feels. Well, actually, I think I corrected myself, Ishmael, but still a really good point. Yeah, I lost a lot of good posts here. yeah, I found it on my iPad. This is from another. This is not you. This is another Joe Cruz. Another Joe Cruz says, "You." Now I always have trouble with my pronouns, but I think by that he means me, not they. You, Trap, McNinch, Zerzan, and Ishizaki are salty, sour people who can't deal with people enjoying freedom and the privacy of their homes. It bothers you that they are loving life. It's sad you can't handle the truth. You lost. Well, let me just take that one step at a time.
Uh-oh.
Salty and sour. I guess that's supposed to be uncomplimentary, salty and sour. But, you know, back in the last century when I was still imbibing alcohol, one of my favorite pastimes was sitting around drinking a margarita. You take that lime and run it around the rim of the glass, sour, and then you rub the rim of the glass in salt, salty and sour. So I don't want you to call me margarita, but if I'm accused of being salty and sour, I'll at least plead nolo contendere, if not guilty, on that one. I don't know about the association with that other rogues gallery. Guys like Trap, McNinch, Zerzan, and Ishizaki, I don't know about that. We're salty and can't deal with people enjoying freedom and the privacy of their homes. Yeah, I think there definitely should be some. I understand. I don't know because there's no way I would know if people are enjoying themselves in the privacy of their homes. I know if I am.
How many people did they name in that list?
Trap, McNinch, Zerzan, it's 3. Ishizaki is 4. I mean, 5.
5.
Salty.
The salty 5.
Salty sour 5.
The sour 5.
Yeah, the salty sour 5. So the salty sour, I guess the accusation is none of the salty sour 5 think that people should be able to enjoy themselves in the privacy of their own homes. This kind of takes us back to what I was talking about the other day with Brave New World and the screen and Big Brother and all that stuff. It bothers you. Now, I think when he uses you, he means all 5 of us, right? It bothers you that they are loving life. Yeah, that's, boy, I tell you, I can't tell you how much sleep I lose over the fact that there may be people in the privacy of their own homes loving life.
Bob, at midnight last night, did you sit there thinking to yourself, all those people out there smoking marijuana right now at midnight?
Well, I hadn't read this, so I didn't know how to properly characterize what it was. Maybe, no, I didn't. As a matter of fact, midnight, yeah, I'm an old guy. I was asleep. But had I known, I would have thought, at the stroke of midnight, I would have thought all of those people out there enjoying themselves in the privacy of their own homes, loving life. Yeah. It bothers you that they are loving life. It's sad you can't handle the truth. You lost. Yeah.
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, me and Jack Nicholson, right? You can't handle the truth. Yeah. And I lost. I lost big time. Let's see, how much money did I have bet on this? I didn't have any money bet on it because the mayor's council hadn't put together the rules and regulations yet.
But you called it. You called it from the beginning.
I did call it.
Every move. Yeah, you were right.
Yeah, I was never wrong on that. Yeah. I was, and, you know, at night, after the show, sometimes I would think about it, enjoy myself in the privacy of my home. And confession here, just sitting there loving life. Okay, so we're coming up on the 7th inning stretch. What is Jack Haddock going to be up to this time?
It's Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary, and to celebrate, we are giving away a new Kia Soul LX, a Mazda 3i Sport, the popular Honda Civic LX, and 30 Manila Flyaways during our 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway. Win 3 great cars from Triple J Auto Group, 30 Flyaways from Philippine Airlines, plus thousands of prizes from Burger King and Foot Locker when you play Micronesia Mall's 30th anniversary Drive-Away Flyaway.
Attention homeowners, MRE solar energy systems now come with battery storage for zero money down. This means that your home will have power even when the island power isn't available, like during power outages or during and after storms. The inconvenience of not having power for your home is a thing of the past. It's solar with battery storage exclusively by Micronesia Renewable Energy. Don't be left in the dark. Call 632-2613 for a free consultation. MRE, the smarter choice.
Hey, there's a guy down behind the first base dugout holding up a pretty good sized sign. I can't go. Oh, yeah, I can read it. It says, Jack who? I wonder whatever happened to Jack Haddock. You know, he used to be one of our best players here after the 7th inning stretch. Long, hard hit line drives. When he was batting, when he was out in the field, shoestring catches, running over the shoulder catches.
It's going to be in one of those "Where Are They Now" stories.
I think so. Where are they now? Where is Jack Haddock now? Yeah. Okay, so we're heading down. This is 7th inning stretch. It's a couple more innings of Tall Tales to go. I'm going to keep working here with the Facebook concept. I hope I don't get too lost again. Troy Mesa, Seattle has even renamed offenders community members instead of suspects. Troy Mesa, thank you, Senator Bob. I agree completely. Brad Hewitt, Guam calls those at DOC as clients instead of inmates, not far from the community members term. Well, I can tell you one director of corrections who didn't have any clients within the walls of DEPCOR. In an earlier life, yeah, but not at DEPCOR. And then we go on to Joe Cruz in his comment that I read earlier. I wonder, you got to wonder if Joe Cruz has an interest in this is another Joe Cruz, not you, if he has an interest in a company that manufactures athletic supporters, also known as jock straps. So slipping on down here. Okay, Carl Bora Nelson. Bob, you should have a parental guidance warning on this discussion. Yeah, really. And then Jesse Lemtiaco, police/law enforcement officers exist to prevent crime and disorder, not to enforce morality. They were never trained to do it, and it shows. Well, what is the source of criminal law? Where does criminal law come from? How do we decide what should be a crime and what shouldn't be a crime? And then when it comes to disorder, aren't there some things that perhaps lead to disorder that aren't criminal offenses? The answer to that is yes, because one of the things that the police officers do is called order maintenance. In other words, if you had 17 people trying to get into I was going to say a telephone booth, but I'd have to explain what that is. Yeah. Troy Mesa, sorry, Carl, just had to loosen the mood. Good to hear from you. Tedo, play from Patty's song to calm down some of the listeners. Troy Mesa, I don't often listen to Tall Tales, but when I do, I say my piece. Carl Bora Nelson, that's so unlike you, Troy. Little by little, you're coming out of your shell. Jesse Limpidiaco, morality when it comes to enforcing drug laws. Well, I suppose there's some meaning there, but I'm not quite sure what it is. Troy Mesa, Carl, it's what happens when you see how society has been driven by political correctness and identity politics. The older one gets, the more you see between the lines. Don Ed Kalani, Bob and Mr. Martinez. I think he prefers no way Jose, but we'll let Mr. Martinez go. The other Joe Cruz has decided to belittle our local elder Manamku's authority to have prime oversight and responsible, respectful use of cannabis marijuana. Then he wonders why we are paying attention to him and addressing his disrespectful attitude toward the elder leaders, balancing ability with wisdom. We think more of whether we can do something instead of whether we should do something. Jeff Goldblum, elder's mindset. Well, anybody who sticks up for the elders can't be all bad. Thank you, Don Ed Kalani. Troy Mesa, I remember a time when officers would try to correct you in our ways. In a way, it was a moral issue. Joe Cruz, Tall Tales is like cannabis. It's medicinal and recreational. Well, it is for me. Yeah, you know, when I leave here at 6 o'clock, I wonder if it's safe for me to drive. Yeah, I'm so... Is the word high? Yeah. Ishmael Velez, lies. The older you start, as you were, the older you get, you start asking what lies. Andrew Bainham, filling trends is not always the best way to make policy. Twain said, when everyone agrees, it's time to pause and think. Tedo, have an enjoyable weekend to everyone. Andre, follow. Jose Martinez, and mind-altering. Troy Mesa, very true, Ishmael. Okay, I guess I've gone to the end of the Facebook comments here. I think I'd get as much of a kick out of this as the posters do. Yeah, well, thank you very much, posters. Okay, so I've got a little bit more here to do with Aperon. And then I'm going to go to Clint versus the American Bankers Association. Getting pretty close to the final call. Archbishop Aperon put out a press release at about the same time that the Vatican put out its press release. And it's a page long, pretty well done. It's in English, Gifino Tsumoro, Zan Gifino Italiano Loqui. So one of the things that Archbishop Aperon says is that I hope that one day new witnesses who have been prevented from coming forward by the atmosphere of fear and intimidation will fully vindicate my name. I also pray for my accusers and for those who have plotted against me. We will each meet before that final tribunal where the full truth will be laid bare before the supreme judge. I don't know. Archbishop Apron, of course, never told us what he had been accused of or what the first trial of the first instance found. Obviously he knew, and obviously now everyone knows, and it was child sexual misconduct. I had some I've got a couple articles that go back to September of 2016 and August of 2017 that I'm not going to read the whole article, but title of one of the articles is Archdiocese Says Neo-Catechumenal Way Interferes with Guam Church. And the other one is Guam Archbishop Michael Burns fires 4 advisors for betraying his trust. They were also members of the Neo-Catechumenal Way. Now, if I were La Stampa, I would get in here and say a source, or I've learned, etc. That's about the best I could do. But I'll just pose a question. There is a cardinal named Filoni who is very close to the Neo-Catechumenal Way, who got deeply involved in our Guam situation here, so deeply involved that he forbid the Laity Forward movement from visiting what was then called the Redemptus Mater Seminary. The letter that the 4 advisors had written was written. They were on the Presbyteral Council, and they wrote letters to Filoni, and that's why Burns fired them. So another interesting fact is that Filoni is one of the top cardinals in the Vatican, and once upon a time I read an article about potential successors to this pope once he's no longer pope. And Filoni's name was on the list, but one of the negatives for Filoni was he's very close to the Neo-Catechumenal Way. So I just have to ask myself this question, given that Archbishop was not defrocked, not laicized, like every other child sex offender has been by the church, including Cardinal McCarrick, and some of the other things that I mentioned here when I read these articles. Just a question, does the Neo-Catechumenal Way connection have anything to do with this? I wonder if anybody out there in our international radio listening audience would have any thoughts on that. Okay, then I'm going to, remember the other day I was hoping that I could talk with our veterinarian correspondent. What's his name again, Real Joe Cruz?
Dr. Tom Poole, sir.
What's his last name?
Poole.
Poole. Okay, yeah. I was going to pose. In fact, I kind of laid this question out. If you're trying to train a horse and you use a whip and spurs and these other things and the reins, etc., if the horse is dead, are you going to have any effect on his behavior by continuing to beat him? In other words, beating a dead horse probably isn't too productive, right? And I think perhaps another Joe Cruz, in his own inimical way, is trying to say, hey, Bob, you're beating a dead horse. But I'm going to keep beating the dead horse anyhow.
Does you have a horse in the race?
I don't have a horse in the race.
But can you lead the dead horse to water and make him drink?
I'm more like the bookie. I figure out who's going to win, and then, right?
There we go.
Yeah, and can you what with a horse?
I said, but you can't lead a dead horse to water and make him drink?
You could lead a dead horse to water, but even the horse can't decide to drink. Yeah. So I've got an article from the Post here, and with this item on the card called Clint versus the American Bankers Association and the Bishop. And The American Bankers Association, recognizing that Guam, Puerto Rico, the District of Columbia, and 33 states have legalized the use of marijuana to some degree, has issued a statement urging the U.S. Congress to resolve the clash between federal law against marijuana and local or state laws allowing it. Despite legislation at state or territory level, the National Bankers Group stated, quote, "The possession, distribution, or sale of marijuana remains illegal under federal law, which means any contact with money that can be traced back to state marijuana operations could be considered money laundering and expose a bank to significant legal, operational, and regulatory risks." Something I've been saying all along. Hey, you guys, it's illegal. When a bank processes transactions for a customer where the proceeds come from marijuana, the bank technically is laundering money, the report states. In addition to growers and retailers, there are vendors and suppliers, landlords and employees that are indirectly tied to the cannabis industry, thus posing legal risk for banks serving such entities and individuals, as indirect connections to marijuana revenues are hard, if not impossible, for banks to identify and avoid. So that means that banks just avoid those transactions. Okay, so we're coming up here on the home stretch. I think even a dead horse can make it through the home stretch.
I think it's moving, sir.
Yeah.
Get a Coke 12-pack for only $3.49 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a dozen extra-large eggs for only 49 cents when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy. Get a case of Circle K water for only $2.99 when you fuel up on $35 or more of premium high-performance fuel. Conditions apply. See stores for details. Circle K. Take it easy.
Docomo Pacific's all-new business bundles provide tailored solutions to help your business become a better business. Choose from our Business Basic, Essential, or Value bundles and get unlimited talk and text, worry-free data at home and abroad, plus access to the fastest online speeds in the Marianas. Add on mobile or broadband lines and save up to 20% for each line. Email businesssales@docomopacific.com to find out which bundle provides the best solution for your business. Terms and conditions apply.
So, the proceeds from raising marijuana or cannabis, dealing it, whatever, would put a bank at risk for a charge of money laundering if it handles any of the cash generated by the cultivation, marketing, etc. of marijuana. Banks are about as conservative as they come. So banks are not going to expose themselves to that kind of risk, even if they thought they could make a buck doing it. So this article is about the Bankers Association suggesting to Congress that they ought to resolve the clash between federal law against marijuana and local or state law allowing it. And this article talks about the committee that Mike St. Nicholas is a member of, the Financial Services Committee, and the committee voted to send the bill to the floor, to the whole House of Representatives. The same article said that Congress, as you were a senator from Oregon and a senator from Colorado, had said that they would introduce companion legislation in the Senate. So if marijuana proceeds are not to be considered money laundering, then this is what has to happen. The House has to pass a properly worded bill. Of course, you never know what that is with Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, who famously said when the Affordable Care Act was on the House floor, we have to pass it to find out what's in it. Very careful at what she did. You know, she'd fit right in with our Guam legislature, wouldn't she? Well, she is Nancy Pelosi, you know, one more female. So the House would have to pass a properly worded bill, which wouldn't be easy. And then the Senate would have to pass a bill. And if the bills are not identical, then the two houses appoint a conference committee, and the conference committee works out a compromise that's theoretically satisfactory to each of the two houses. Then it's sent back to each of the two houses who, if each of the houses vote for it, is sent to the president, who may sign the bill into law or veto it. None of this is a slam dunk. I don't know how to read the Senate on this particular bill. I suspect that it'll be more conservative than the House on this particular bill. But until that happens, the proceeds of marijuana sales are not bankable because exposing the bank to a charge of money laundering. So those of you who are thinking of, now that it's, quote, legal, unquote, investing in the business, might want to take that into consideration. And then one more thing here. One more item on the card: Burns versus cannabis, and that is that the Archbishop, who at least arguably speaks for the Catholic Church here, comes out and says, "We are saddened by the decision of Governor Lulian Guerrero to approve Bill 32 and sign it into law. The war on keeping drugs and substance abuse away from children just lost major ground. The Archbishop of Ganya stands by its position that the legalization of recreational marijuana will be very harmful to our island, especially our children. The Archbishop is urging all groups in our community to devote tremendous effort and attention to protecting our youth from this illicit drug, which we all agree many of them are already regularly ingesting. We are our own worst enemies," concludes the statement. So I have another viewpoint that I want to share here. I saw the horse's ear wiggle, so maybe, and that is, you know, the law, in addition to the things that are rather obvious, the law legitimatizes or sometimes delegitimizes certain practices. And in my mind, we would be better off if we took whatever steps necessary to delegitimize the use of any mind-altering drug. I guess I'll have to come back to that on Monday, because another glorious day at Tall Tales has come to an end. It's been a real pleasure, as usual, and I'll see you on, wow, Real Joe Cruz, 2 whole days and no Tall Tales. Wow.